I don't know if I can name another person who knows running shoes more than our guest today, Thomas Neuberger. Thomas founded his shoe and gear review company, Believe in the Run, 15 years ago, and now travels the world to experience the latest in running shoe technology. We chat about his early years of Believe in the Run, his recent visit to Adidas headquarters in Germany, and his top picks for racing and training shoes right now. Hope you enjoy the show.
Three, two, one, yeah!
All right, today we have Thomas from Believe in the Run. Thomas, how's it going?
It's going really well, thanks.
Good. Yeah. Well,
Good
thanks
to
for
talk
being.
running with you.
Yeah. Yeah. We got a fun little lineup today. Definitely want to talk about Believe in the Run. You guys have been around for 15 years now, which is absolutely an incredible, incredible success story in
A
itself.
lot,
So
a lot of stuff has changed, but yeah, it's been fun.
yeah. So talk about that. Let's get into some shoe reviews, like this year in shoes, what that's looked like, and then also love to talk about some of the things that you've had going on too. I know you've been traveling a bit.
Yeah, a little bit. We're getting ready to travel right now. We're heading up to New York tomorrow.
All right. Yeah,
Yeah.
we'll chat about that one too. But before really kicking off the episode, we have one question that we ask to every guest, and the question is, "What's the why behind why you run?"
Whew. I mean, it's changed over the years. Obviously, 15 years, you got to find new ways to motivate yourself or to stay in the game. Originally, why I started running was a bad breakup, and my father was having health problems. And uh, when he passed away, it was a wake up call for me to do something about my own physical health.
Hmm. Did you start running later in your life then?
I did. I started at 36.
Okay.
So, yeah, didn't run at all. I had even stopped doing I used to play pickup basketball and that kind of stuff. I wasn't doing anything, and yeah, I was pretty much started from ground zero. I went to a 5K, and I was like, "Where have all these people been? They all look happy." Because I was hanging out in bars. I was probably even smoking the occasional cigarette at the time, and I was like, "Wow, these people look happy, and they're in the daylight. It's nice." And I kind of was like, "Let me give this a shot."
Yeah, I mean that's a cool story there. If we honestly wanted to park it for a few minutes, like what has running done for your life?
I mean, it totally changed my life. I went from I mean, I started off in as like an artist life. I went to art school. I was a painter. Everything was about art for the longest time, and so physical stuff was kind of like a side quest. And I did play like sports in high school. I played lacrosse, and I played basketball and skied a lot. And then you know followed that artist life and became somewhat sedentary because I was growing up. I was naturally kind of thin, but then as I got older, the metabolism changed, and all of a sudden, I woke up in my 30s, and I was just like, "Holy cow, I'm overweight." And I started working out and running, and but it really if I think about the biggest impact anything's had on my life, running has probably had the largest impact. It's changed everything, given me a career. It's had me travel across the world. I've been everywhere from Tokyo to Europe to all over the United States, and it's all through running.
Wow. Yeah, that's really cool. And so really just to kind of kick it off with the early days of Believe in the Run, did you know that you always wanted to start a shoe review business, or how did the whole idea come?
No, it's actually weird. Back then, the biggest social media platform for running was something called Daily Mile, and Daily Mile was like Facebook but for running. So everybody that you were talking to there was talking about running. Everybody was running. You kind of followed everybody's daily training there. It was a very social Strava. Like it had all the functionality you kind of wish Strava had, where you could actually respond to someone very easily and
Mhm.
talk through training, ask questions. And there was a guy on there named Pete Larson who started Run Blogger,
Mm.
and it was kind of a shoe review place. And he kind of got me into it, and I started talking about the shoes I was running in, and it kind of took off from there.
How far into your let's call it running career was this
Well,
launch?
So I was working at a marketing agency as a creative director, and I just started running probably a year or so before I started there.
Okay.
You know, we got a client called Gore-Tex, and I'm sitting at their headquarters, and I just run maybe one marathon, maybe two. And when I'm there, they're like, "Hey, we've got this TransRockies race," and it sounded ludicrous. It's like over 100 miles across the Rocky Mountains, and I was kind of like, "Ah, that sounds fun." And back then, there weren't a lot of ultras and stuff like that, so there was it's almost like a nutty pursuit anyway. And I ended up signing up for the Trans Rockies, and that's actually where I started at that time the blog,
Mm.
because I wanted people to contribute to the Baltimore Child Abuse Center
That's
as I ran the Trans Rockies.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's cool. That's cool. And it sounds like then you went from 5K to marathon fairly quickly, and then marathon to 100 miler pretty quick.
it was crazy because I went to the 5K, and I was blown away. And this when I'm drinking a beer afterwards or whatever it was, a guy walked up, and he was bigger than I was as far as being out of shape, and he just finished the half. And I was like, wow, that was incredible. I can't believe he did a half marathon. That just blew my mind. And I'm like, well, if he could do it, I could do it. And I talked to a friend. He's like, just sign up for a marathon. So I did actually go 5K to signing up for a marathon. And he said, you'll get plenty of miles while you're training.
Yeah. Well, so do you remember the shoes you wore for those first few races?
Oh yeah. Yeah. My first shoe was an Asics. I want to say it was a Nimbus
Hmm.
it was either Cumulus or Nimbus for the first 5K. And that's when I first started jogging. And I used to run with a friend of mine, just like little 3 milers and stuff like that. And then my first marathon shoe was a Mizuno Wave
Mm.
shoe. So yeah, it was back before super shoes and that kind of stuff. So
Yeah, definitely,
a
back
little
and it's
different
a
era.
a little different era, and I think, ASICS almost had the corner on the cloud market before, On came along.
They did. I mean, I'd be a little upset if I was A6. You had all of them, Nimbus, Cumulus. You know,
Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah.
They're not a Cirrus, but
No, and before we're kinda moving on from the founding story, what was, like, some of the reasoning behind, like, the Believe in the Run name?
I mean that's not so much a mystery. At the time, Nike was doing a campaign, and I saw that sign they put up that said "Believe in the Run." And I was in the attic, look, see, has anybody owned that URL? No, so I bought the URL, and I didn't even at that
Oh,
time know what I was going to be doing as far as even building a website. I liked it. I was like, that's cool. I even remember the agency that I looked up the agency that had done the campaign for them, and I was like, oh, they didn't get any of this stuff, so I just went and grabbed it all. So it's not as exciting as the story should be, but and then it just I knew that I saw other people starting websites where they were like their name in running, so it'd be like Tom's running blog, or whatever it would be. And I was like, that's great, but if I get injured, or if I bring somebody else on, or if I have something else, I want a name that um anybody can come in under, and it's
mhm,
not just like the Thomas's website.
mhm,
So, as a matter of fact, when I started to do the fundraiser for the charity, it was just one of the URLs I had, and I was like, okay, that sounds appropriate for doing what I'm going to be doing here. So I threw that up,
yeah.
and went on from there.
That's cool. So 2009 launched. Was it overnight success, or did it
Never,
take a few years
no.
to get
It,
going?
I for long. That's the thing. Now there's so many social media outlets that you pretty much can have overnight success,
Mhm.
and you can reach a large audience quickly. But at the time when I started, Instagram was in its infancy. I don't even know if Instagram had started back then. I think it started in 2010 or 11. Um, Facebook, and it wasn't, Facebook didn't even own it back then.
Mhm.
Facebook was there, like I said, like a Daily Mile, but I was talking to like 3 or 4 people. Obviously, when the website started up for TransRockies, I started getting inquiries, and people were asking, well, what gear are you wearing? What are you doing? Like, how are you're doing a lot of mileage to gear up for this challenge. What type of gear are you using? So I started talking about it. And as I started talking about it, people cared less about what training I was doing and more about the gear I was wearing. So I learned really quick, like, oh, if I want attention, talk about the gear. And
Yeah.
so it became really quickly a very gear centric place to be. Plus, when you're running, it's not an expensive sport necessarily, but if you want all the gear and stuff, it gets
Mhm.
expensive pretty quick. So getting free shoes and other product was a real bonus in the start.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, like, I feel like that was kind of like a trailblazing moment, right? From a shoe review standpoint and building community that way. Were the brands really receptive at the time to just giving free shoes out to review?
Not really. Like it's funny now. You'll see like during a shoe launch, hundreds of people will get the shoe. You'll see your Instagram feed fill up with it. Back then, they were kind of skeptical. They had no idea. They're like, "What is this? Who is this
Mhm.
guy? What's he doing?" And they started just kind of like trickling shoes. They test the shoe. Okay, this one's important to us. Throw this one out there. And honestly, when I was starting, since it was just me, there's only a certain amount of shoes that I was going to go through. But I always said, all right, my rule of thumb was 20 miles per shoe at a minimum. So even if the shoe sucks, I'm going to run 20 miles in it. Sometimes that first run can be bad, and then the next one is not as bad, and
Mhm.
vice versa. Sometimes they could be good, and then the next one you're like, not so much. But yeah, so it was it it was a new thing for brands. They were spending their money at places like Runner's World or whatever on ads and stuff like that. The individual people out there reviewing shoes weren't as important to them at that point.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely, and I think a lot of things that we've seen, especially through social media, has changed a lot of the ecosystem for partnerships and things like that, but
Absolutely.
yeah, so when did, I'm just kinda curious, when did the building a community out become a big focus for you?
I never actually really thought about it.
Hmm,
Like it was just something that naturally happened. I like being around runners. The more energy of runners around, I think the more fun an event is.
hmm,
Uh, so I started like just a little running club at the time. It called the Faster Bastards, and it was kind of tongue in cheek. It was clearly a name that wasn't going to get sponsors or have brands really interested in being with us. Most of the guys had tattoos and weren't your typical runners. A lot of cotton T-shirts, a lot of. We looked more like a Harley Davidson club than a running club, and still do to a certain degree. Um, but yeah, it just sort of naturally came together. And then when we started doing things, we started inviting people stuff because like that's fun. Like, oh, we're gonna do this. Hey, everybody, we can.
yeah,
The brands are willing to throw a couple bibs at us. We're willing to do this, and just passed them along and just kept building stuff up.
yeah, that's cool. No, and I think, like, from what I've seen from your social media and following you guys, like, community is such a I feel like a natural aspect to what you do now, and,
Yeah.
it's easy for you guys to go anywhere and draw a pretty big crowd.
Well, we're happy. Like that's so much fun. Like we're going up to New York this weekend, and we put out, hey, we're going to be doing a shakeout run, and we try to get stuff that makes it fun to be there. So
Mm,
if the brand's willing to, give us a budget for swag or hats or something like that, we're like, hey, this would be fun to do something like this. So a lot of our decisions come from what would be fun and how could we have more fun. And so that usually means community and making other people happy. So
yeah, no, that's cool, and let's keep going down the path of fun and new technology also. So you recently went to Germany. Can you
yeah,
share with us a little bit about that trip with
yeah.
Adidas?
So I've been to the Nike campus. I've been to a lot of the different ones, and the two that stand out is like kind of like the biggest they're almost like universities. Nike and
Mhm.
Adidas, it's like a campus. There's multiple buildings. There's different things going on in those buildings. So, like, think of your college where there's, social studies over here and history and mathematics and art. That's really what's kind of at these headquarters. So you go in and you're just blown away by the size and the scale of everything. Like, there's hundreds of people working at Adidas, and they build these campuses like a school where there's fun, like there's one sidewalk that's all trampoline. There's, you walk in the building and it's called Laces, and you look up and over the top of the building is like this architecture that looks like laces going over the building, and there's like a mini track around the building. Like, it's just it's like being inside an advertisement. Like, if you can't fall in love with a brand when you're on their campus,
Mhm.
I don't know what's wrong with you. But it was just insane. They started off showing us like the history of Adidas, and they pulled out these things from archives. So they had like
Mhm.
Catherine Switzer's shoe, like the different, Halle Gabrielisi's the shoe that he broke the world record in, all that
Mhm.
stuff's there. But then also like Run DMC and Sylvester Stallone and all the celebrities they've worked with, minus one. Yeah. Um, so it's just like you get this real sense of history, and it starts off like fantastic, and then you get to talk to the people who are designing the shoes. You get to talk to the people who are designing the clothing, how the technology works, like why strung looks the way it does, and you get to see on a computer the way your foot strikes, and you can actually put on the shoe to test where you flexing the shoe, and then they would make a custom
Mhm.
cover based on your flex and locking down your foot. So, like,
Yeah.
it's just, if you're into gear and shoes and the geekiness of tech, it'll blow your mind. It's just so much fun.
Well, you bring up an interesting point. Do you feel like some of the newer to market slash like kind of over the last year or so just getting started companies are at a huge disadvantage because of the big companies like Nike and Adidas, like they're spending a lot of money on the tech behind the shoe.
Yeah, yes and no. I think that it's always great. Like, obviously, the Vaporfly ended up driving almost like an arms race in the shoe industry
Mhm.
to develop something for the competitive racer for other brands to be able to have something on race day that matched the level of where Nike had gone with the Vaporfly and then
Mhm.
the Alpha Fly. And then we're starting to see, like, this year was the first year that not only do we have one or two competitors, like when we went to review shoes, there's 10 or 15 very legitimate race day shoes for you to choose from. Where 2 years ago, there was maybe three.
Mhm.
And now, last year, I'd say it probably moved up to around six. Now there's almost 20. That,
Yeah.
like, we just did a thing on our Instagram feed where we were weighing the different super shoes we had. And after we did the video, there was 19 shoes on it. And after we did the video, I like realized, oh, I forgot a couple. But yeah,
Yeah, that's wild. It's a competitive space then.
yeah. So to say, like, to answer your question, are they at a real disadvantage? I think if you're on the bleeding edge, there's an advantage to having a research team, all the
Mhm.
research science, but all that stuff trickles down, and that knowledge trickles down to these other companies. So they can take a look at it and say, okay, I see what's going on here, and try
Yeah.
to.
Well, and then one of the pieces of the tech that I'd love for you to just kind of explain a little bit about was on your Instagram. You were in this a
Oh,
green room that you got
yeah.
scanned and
So basically, this was a little unnerving. Uh, we come into the lab and we're going to do testing of some new product that Adidas has. But before we do that, they wanted to like get all our vitals and scan.
hmm,
So we get up on a machine first, and it does your weight, what percentage is fat, muscle, all that kind of stuff. They really got into the science behind that. And then you step into this room, and they had us take all our clothes off, and you just have split shorts on. And then they take the split shorts and they tape them up. So you're basically in a Speedo, and you're in front of like 20 people. And the nice thing was, it was the weirdest thing. I got very comfortable very quickly
hmm,
because you realize they do this with like people all the time.
hmm,
And then they stick you in this room where there's cameras roll up your body and roll down your body and capture a 360 view and put it together for you. And So like I know exactly what size clothing I should be wearing, exactly, the all the scan stuff that my left arm isn't as strong as my right arm, all this crazy stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah,
You
it was pretty cool.
you didn't know you were gonna leave with your custom suit size, did you?
I did not. I also didn't know I'd be getting almost completely naked in front of several people, but it worked out.
And so do they use that then to, like, know what shoe you should be in?
Well, no, it was actually interesting because we thought maybe this was just a demonstration for us, but they're actually working on some shoe releases. And they wanted to get us on the treadmill and see how we responded to the shoes that they're working on, the new foams and stuff like that. So they took that data, all of them. I actually got like a file back of all my
Mm.
information, and then they put us on a treadmill with the oxygen. I guess it records your oxygen and stuff.
Oh, interesting.
Um, on the treadmill, cameras are all around you, so they've got a 360 view of you. They also taped you up with all the reflectors, so they can do um, kind of like without the
Biomechanic?
human body.
Yeah.
Yeah, like see like the spots and see how efficient you are. And then we did 7 minutes in three different shoes, and then we would get off the treadmill in between, give feedback on what we thought of the shoe, where the level of cushioning was, a whole bunch of questions,
Mhm.
and then get back on with the next one, and they'd measure our efficiency in the shoe and our intuitive thoughts about it.
Wow, that's pretty cool. I mean, that's taking, definitely the research and development, like, side of things to the next level, which from what it
Yeah,
sounds. Yeah.
yeah, and it's pretty cool because you see. I also saw videos of the pro athletes doing it, so you see that. Okay, this is me, and if you watch the video of me in the YouTube recap, they had me doing like an 8:30 pace on the treadmill, and then you watch the pros, and they're probably doing because they want you to be at a certain threshold. They don't want you to be
Mm.
working too hard. Um, and then you see the pros and what they put them at, and those dudes are flying, and
Yeah.
you're just like, oh, okay, there's a
Yeah.
little difference here.
Yeah, and I'm guessing they're doing that with their trail guys, their road guys, pretty much all their
Yeah,
athletes.
I would guess. I don't know how they do. So Terex compared to the regular Adidas
Mm.
is a little bit different, but like it was funny because someone asked if they do spike training there, and they're like, no, they would tear up the treadmill. Um, but and also the treadmill doesn't typically go. You would need a special treadmill to go as fast as, like, say that you were doing 100-yard dash guy. You
Yeah,
need a treadmill that's going close to, what, 30
yeah.
miles per hour, something
Not
like
many of
that.
them out there, yeah.
Yeah, and it'd have to speed up really quick.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
yeah, that's cool, that's cool. So, I mean, it sounds like a really good experience with, Adidas a few weeks ago, months ago. What else do you have coming up? Like, what I guess, what makes you excited right now in the shoe industry?
I mean, we're in a really nice moment in the shoe industry where there's a lot of good product out there. So the foams are getting better. Uh, there's more playfulness with like the designs of midsoles. So you can get a shoe that feels like everybody was like, oh, I really love the way my race day shoe feels, but I don't want to be running in race day shoes all the time. Plus,
Mhm.
durability of those shoes and cost, that it's going to be off a little bit. So they're coming out with shoes and what we coin like super trainers, where you take the stuff that you learn from the super shoes and you bring it down to a daily training platform, something that you can do all your miles in. And some people will race in it. Some people will do all their
Mhm.
various, tempos, long runs, whatever, in these trainers, and they're suitable for it. They're just not going to be as maybe light, or it's sort of like a race car where they cut everything off so that it's the best performance. So it's a little heavier and stuff. But there's so many good shoes out now.
Are there any examples of those shoes that have hit the market yet? Like the souped up daily trainer?
Yeah, I mean, there's probably one from almost every brand at this point, but like we just tested the Mizuno Neo Vista, which is
Mhm.
a fun, soft, squishy shoe with a plate. You've got SE Trainer from New Balance, which has got the plated and uses some of the foams, and they even have a non-plated if you want to go with the Rebel that's got a Pebax mixed foam. Um, You go to the Super Blast from Asics is a fan favorite. Our audience like loves that shoe. New version's coming out soon. Um, yeah, there's I mean, you name a brand, they've got a super trainer out there. Skyward X from Hoka. Uh,
Mm,
thinking Adidas. I like the Boston 12, and right now you can probably get that on sale at
mm,
a really good price. And it's such a versatile shoe for pretty much all your running needs.
yeah. Would you like lump the Bondi X in that category too, or is that
The Bondi X is pretty much the Skyward X now.
okay?
So you would have, I don't know if they're even going to come out with a Bondi X2. I think,
Okay.
I have a feeling the Skyward X is the Bondi X2.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
if you like that one, you'll
just
love
new marketing.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's good. Well, I think this is kind of a good transition too. I'd love to even hear from you. Like, what are like some of your top picks right now around like training or like tempo runs and then race? But maybe we just start with training. For like let's call our marathoners, right?
Yeah.
What's a
I
good
mean,
like training shoe?
like just a daily trainer.
Yeah.
I mean, I there's so many I like. I would probably say one of the most versatile is like the Super Blast from Asics. If you can get a hold of it, they seem to be kind of letting the inventory go down as we get ready for the next version to come out. It's a non-plated, high stack, um, lightweight, fun shooter to run in. It kind of hits like all the notes. I also like the Boston 12, which
Yeah.
you're going to be able to get on sale at this point, and it's a phenomenal trainer. It does. Some people, the upper doesn't always agree with their foot, so
Mm.
you definitely want to try it and see if it works for you. Uh, I mean, I could go on for a while. Like,
Yeah, give me one more. One more.
let me think. I mean, I use it. I call it, it's the worst example. It's the CLOX1 from uh, Hoka. The reason why I say it's the worst example is it's probably one of my favorite shoes to run in, but it's supposed to be a super shoe, race day shoe. But for
Mhm.
me, it's over 9 ounces. And, so they sent it to us. And I'm like, I'm not going to probably use this for racing, but I really like running it. So I just kept running in it. And I was like, this actually feels amazing. My legs feel fresh afterwards. The foam is held up. So I did it. Normally, we go about to 20 miles with a review of a shoe, and then we have to move on to the next shoe. On purpose on that one, just to see how the foams would hold up,
Mhm.
I took it to 100 and gave like a update on 100. Same thing with the New Balance Rebel
Oh,
before, got
yeah.
a little extra miles because I just enjoyed it. But like a real basic one that's really good, that's not that expensive, is the Nova Blast
Mhm.
from Asics. I really love that shoe for just like, I think I could recommend that shoe to just about anybody.
Okay. Yeah, that is really good. And so if we move to the road, what I from a racing standpoint, what I'd love to hear from you too, because I feel like there are some like known leaders in the space, and at least the ones big brands that have been around for a bit with the super shoes. Maybe like give us top three that are like the most exciting from like they didn't have a shoe maybe 2 years ago and now they're out and it's an excite. I mean, you said there's like 20, so
There
we,
is,
we
there
gotta.
is. But some of my favorites are still people who've had them out for a while. I'll tell you this though, I may have just replaced my top shoe in the past was the Alpha Fly One, and so we actually again like we I purchased pairs of the Alpha Fly One after the first one when the one that they sent us went out, and then but the new Metaspeed Sky and Edge Paris from Asics,
Mm,
I love those shoes, which is surprising because the previous model I felt was a little harsh, and so when we ran Tokyo with Asics, I ended up going with the Super Blast instead of their race day shoe.
mm,
Where now I just have raced two races with the Metaspeed Sky Edge and Paris, and both of them I thought it was a phenomenal choice, and I picked them because when I was doing my workouts, typically the Alpha Fly was something that I found I could get into a rhythm and hold my pace
mm,
well with, and I almost felt like the Metaspeed Sky or Edge Paris I was able to get the same sort of energy return that I was looking for, but it's a lighter shoe. And I
Mhm.
really do believe that the weight of a race day shoe matters towards the end of 26 miles. And just when you're tired, the last thing you want is that your foot to feel a little heavier, or you're not feeling that bounce off the foam.
Yeah.
So that's where it comes. But like brands that surprised me, I was surprised by Diadora this year with their Gara Carbon,
Okay.
and I was surprised by Tier came out with a, race day shoe, the Valkyrie Carbon, and like they didn't have a Tier doesn't have any shoes, and all of a sudden they've got three shoes that I think are viable.
Wow.
Um, Diadora kind of lagged behind on foams. Now they invested in real P-backs in the shoe, and it's a legit racer.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Those are good ones. Yeah. Diodora. I wasn't expecting to hear their name pop up, but that's
yeah. Well, it's actually funny when we went over to Europe, we stopped in Italy first and visited Diodora. So it's like talk about juxtaposition.
yeah.
They're really quaint boutique. Like they had hand craftsmen actually making the shoes in the back, and then you go to Adidas. It's like whole
Yeah.
different.
I haven't slipped my foot into a Diodora since my youth soccer days, so I might have to try them out again.
All right, yeah. If you want just it's supposed to be up tempo, but I feel like it's really well cushioned. It's a supercritical foam, the Frequenza,
Mm.
and then yeah, the Gara Carbon is a pretty sick race day shoe if you want. It's a little more expensive. They ask I think it's $300 for the Gara Carbon.
Okay. Yeah. Definitely check them out. And then I'd love to just hit on one more aspect on the shoe side of things, since we have you. So there's been a lot of development on the trail side of shoes recently, right? Like, does
Yeah.
carbon even matter, or is it more about grip? Like, where where do you think like the trail scene is right now in their shoes? Are they still lagging behind?
No, I think it's like kind of the trickle down effect. It's the same thing with like super trainers. They're trying to figure out, okay, these things work on the road. Why do athletes love them? And why? How do we apply that to the trail?
Mhm.
And I think in general, the trail is more forgiving than the road. Just on your legs, on everything. So maybe you don't need quite as much stack. Maybe you don't need quite as much, of the bells and whistles, because the softer ground and the different terrain are going to compensate for that. But they're taking the same things they're learning on the roadside, and you're seeing that with like the Ultra Fly from Nike, where
Mhm.
it's basically a vapor fly for the trails. You've got the Terex, the new the name's escaping me, but
Yeah,
that
they just launched it like 2 weeks ago, I think, live or
yeah,
so. For the
it's a race shoe. Like that's you know, Pebax foam plates, it's as close to again a road shoe. North Face has some nice stuff out right now.
Mhm.
One of my personal favorites is Norda, and that has no bells and whistles. It's pretty much it's a pretty standard Vibram midsole, Vibram outsole, but the
Hmm.
Dyneema upper, it'll just last forever and it feels good on the trail. But
Yeah, all these are really good options. Um, I hope you like this segue. I'm going to ask you a question because you've used the lever before.
yes.
Do you think there's any, because we actually get this question quite a bit, which I like the question, and I think you may have a better answer for it, is, when you're reducing body weight while exercising, does shoe choice matter?
On the treadmill, less because I feel like the treadmills are again, you're basically getting cushioning. It's not as hard as concrete or pavement as it is. It's funny, I can dial down the speed chew on the treadmill. Like if I have a workout and I have to do a workout,
Mhm.
there's something about the treadmill's propulsion that I feel like I need less of that propulsive off the foam to
Mm.
still be able to do it. So for me, I actually go probably a little more minimal on the treadmill than I would on the road. But if I think about what's really fantastic about the new trainers and the new race day shoes, it's the recovery time you get from those foams.
Hmm.
So if you are having problems with impact, or it's an injury that you're trying to overcome that has impact, it won't hurt you to have something that's a little softer on your feet. But I do feel like sometimes it gets a little lost on the treadmill and almost can feel a little more sloppy just because you have that, you know, less firm underfoot
Yeah.
platform.
Yes. So I guess what I'm hearing from you is, whether you're at a reduced body weight or not on the treadmill, it just comes down to like the purpose of that run.
Yeah.
Whether it's coming back from an injury, you definitely want some more cushion there. And if you're doing a workout, a little bit more firm.
Yeah, and honestly, like sometimes I think about it too. Like the injury, depending on what caused the injury or where the injury is, would also change my footwear choice, because sometimes I do think there is an advantage to having something where your foot can flex, or you can feel like the impact on the bottom of your foot, a little more firm shoe. Sometimes I think that the more cushion shoes can mask things, or say that you're having a little problem with your metatarsals being under stress. If you have too much cushion underneath of it, they're almost stretching those tendons that are attached to it, so
Hmm.
it could inflame things more. So I tend to go a little more, I hate to use the word natural, but a midsole that feels a little more flexible and a little more less between me and the ground.
Okay. Yeah. All good tips. And you did actually mention to me, if you're okay with talking about it for a
Yeah,
few minutes, you talked to me before we kind of started recording here that you did use the lever to come back from a bone stress injury last year. And I
yeah,
thought you did it through like a pretty, uh, yeah, I like the protocol that you used for it. So I'd
good.
love to kind of just dive into that for a few minutes if
Yeah,
we can.
absolutely. So last year, after doing, um, I don't know, it was about 4 marathons within a 5 month period. Uh, I noticed my foot was hurting, and I wasn't sure what it was. And I've had a stress fracture before in a metatarsal. And I was like, doesn't quite feel as bad as that did, but maybe I should watch it. And when it started being one of those things where I, like, in the morning when I would get out of bed, it was just shooting pain, and just running was becoming like almost impossible. I would come back from a run and just be in pain. I got on my bike and started shifting things to my bike, and then what I would do is start testing stuff on with a lever. That we have
Mm.
a lever at home. We've had it probably for 4 years, I want to say.
Wow. Yeah. Early days.
Yeah, at least like maybe 4 years. And so I've used it before with injury stuff, but this one I was like, okay, let me test. Can I run a mile? Uh, so I would put on the shorts, put the harness on, take the weight off, and I don't measure the weight. I just yank it as hard as I can and figure that's good. Um, the and so I would start doing a mile, and if I didn't hurt, well, the next day I would ride my bike for an hour or so, and then hop on the lever and maybe try to do 2 miles. So I kind of tested it and kind of tried not to get greedy. So would use the lever and up the miles, but really slowly. Like I'm like, okay, if 2 miles doesn't hurt, let me do 2 miles all this week. So
Hmm.
I'll ride the bike, get on, do 2 miles after the bike, and see how that goes. If everything feels fine and it starts to feel better, I'll go up to 3 miles next week and stuff.
Hmm.
So I took my time, kind of getting better, and then eventually was like, okay, let's take off the lever and see how it is just with the treadmill. And was like, the easy way to do it was to start with the lever, and
Hmm.
then like I would not have any tension on the bungee cord,
Yeah.
so that I was running. But I knew that if it started to hurt, I could
Hmm.
yank the weight off again. But then just worked my way back out into finally being able to get off the bike and try running a mile or two outside, and then doing basically the same thing I did on the lever, but out on the street, like trying not to get greedy. Because the first thing, you have a good run and it doesn't hurt, you're like, I'm back.
Yeah.
And then you're not. Um, and it's funny because I ended up going to a medical place, getting x-rayed and everything, because I was like, this has been a long time that I was doing this. And they basically showed me on the x-ray. They said, you actually did everything right. It's healing. you
Mm.
might be feeling some residual pain. But she showed me on the x-ray, there's like this white lump on the metatarsal, which that was scar tissue, bone scar tissue, from a potential
Yeah.
uh, stress fracture. So I felt really fortunate that I dodged the bullet, because I think a lot of us will just keep running
Mhm.
and which I had done before. I just kept running and
And
ended up
then and then
breaking
you're off for 3 months, if you
in a
really
boot
break
for
it.
6 months. Yeah.
Oh, 6
Yeah.
months in a boot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was probably in the boot for 3 months, and then, you know, had to not fully running for almost 6 months. But yeah,
Wow.
at one point.
Did you, just last question on this is like, did you have any pain in that return to run then at reduced body weight or?
Uh, I mean, when it started, like, I think, you know how sometimes, like, you focusing on something so hard,
Yeah.
you can't tell if is it healed, or am
Is it in
I?
my head?
Yeah. And I got, after, that's why I went and got the x-ray. And then once I was cleared, I was kind of able to just kind of like, okay. But I felt like that foot was, um, off, I'll say, for another, 3 or 4 months. And,
Mm,
you know,
yeah.
before I started getting into full training for my next marathon.
Which I think was coming up pretty soon because you did a lot of marathons last year, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It came around. I've actually scaled back. The year before that, I decided, like, this taught me a lesson. I'm like, I'm at an age where I used to do like maybe 4 marathons a year. And I'm like, we got to scale back. Two is your tops right now. And let's just see how
Mm.
that goes. Spring, fall, and that'll be it.
Yeah. Well, Thomas, really appreciate you coming on. Thanks for obviously sharing everything and your expertise in the shoe business. I learned a lot, which was great. And you have a lot of exciting things coming up. Where's the best way for people to follow you? And
Yeah. I mean, Instagram, you can always see what our team's up to. We do a lot of stuff there at Believe in the Run. And then we have a website, believeintherun.com, and YouTube channel, same name. That's pretty much the easiest way to stay in touch with our universe.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, we'll definitely tag
Oh,
you
and
in
the podcast. I forgot. I'm on a podcast.
the
Yeah.
Yeah, all the things. You guys are, like I said, you build good communities. So definitely recommend everybody to check out what you're up to.
That's awesome, man. Hopefully, we'll get to meet you in person one of these days. You come out for a run.
Yeah, we'll do it. Baltimore's not too far away from my hometown, so we'll make a
There we
visit
go.
down there. Yeah.
All right.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Thank you, Thomas.
You got it.
3, 2, 1, yeah!
Thanks for listening to today's episode. If you're interested in learning more about incorporating a lever system into your training, follow us on Instagram at Lever Movement, or even follow me on Strava to learn how I incorporate lever into my training for ultras. Until next time, keep running.